you note that President Trump signed an executive order on coordinating national resilience to electromagnetic pulses. Last year, on March 26, 2019, is the President Trump's EMP executive order. Is that adequate to address the essential threat from EMP?
It would be if we were still a constitutional republic. If it was the America that I grew up in, when the Commander-in-Chief of the United States orders the U.S. government to protect the electric grid and other life-sustaining critical infrastructures, in the America I grew up in, it would happen. Okay, and in addition to that, the Congress of the United States in December of last year, December 2019. Passed in the National Defense Authorization Act, which is the defense bill. It's the bill that funds the Department of Defense. It's the most important bill, arguably, that Congress passes. They seconded the motion. So the Congress of the United States made the president's executive order law. They gave it the weight of law that said, we agree with the President of the United States that we need to protect our electric grid and other life-sustaining critical infrastructures from EMP. And we order you, U.S. government, as a matter of law, to enforce the President's executive order. And not only that, but we want you to report to Congress on the progress you're making, in addition to the President. So we have two of the branches of government: the President, the executive branch, and the congressional branch, the legislative branch. And Democrats and Republicans alike basically voted for that, ordering the deep state, ordering the U.S. government to protect us from EMP. And I have to tell you a little story, a little anecdote relevant to this executive order, which is an excellent executive order, by the way. And it was a promise that was delivered by President Trump to the American people and also to me personally, because I had the privilege of being the first person to brief Mr. Trump on the EMP threat before he became president. At the Iowa caucuses, when he was running for president and he was candidate Trump, I briefed him for 45 minutes on the EMP threat. And intelligent man that he is, he understood this threat, understood it deserved highest priority, but he was puzzled. And he asked me, why is it that the nation is not already protected against this existential EMP threat? How could they possibly have neglected this threat for so long? And I explained to him that the threat was so big that no department or agency of the U.S. government wanted to take responsibility for it. And that one of the problems was they were always passing the buck. So the Department of Defense would say, for example, well, an EMP can come from the sun, and that's not our responsibility. That's the job of the Department of Homeland Security. They deal with natural disasters like hurricanes and tidal waves and earthquakes. An EMP from the sun would be a natural disaster. That's not a Department of Defense job. That's a Department of Homeland Security job. And the Department of Homeland Security would say, well, an EMP can come from a nuclear weapon or a non-nuclear weapon. It could be attacked by terrorists or China or Russia. And that's not a natural disaster. That's a man-made disaster that the Department of Defense is responsible for. And so it's the Department of Defense's job to deal with this problem. And then others would say, both of them would say, well, what about the Department of Energy? They're responsible for the electric grid and working with the utilities to protect the electric grid. Shouldn't it be their job? And the Department of Energy would say, no, it isn't our job, because this is actually DOE's job, because it's either a natural disaster or it's a Department of Defense job, because it's a big threat for mankind. And the Department of Energy isn't responsible for dealing with existential threats like that, And so it was a buck-passing exercise, as I explained to then candidate Trump. And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, well, don't worry, Dr. Pry. When I'm elected president, we'll knock their heads together and solve this problem. And that's basically what the president's executive order on EMP does. It It knocks together the heads of all the departments and agencies: Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Energy, all of the other departments and agencies that are also responsible, and there are many, and puts them all on the hot seat and says, you will work together to protect our nation quickly against the existential EMP threat. And so that is, so the executive order itself, as an executive order, is excellent. You couldn't ask for a better executive order. But as I pointed out in my book, this isn't the America that I grew up in. We're an executive order from the President of the United States and a bill from the Congress of the United States that makes it a matter of law. That isn't enough either, because as I explain in my book, the deep state is still sabotaging and slow rolling and undermining the president's executive order. They were their progress report. They were owed the president a progress report 1 year after he signed the executive order on March 26th. I published my book before March 26th to be my progress report to the American people and to the president and to the Congress on the lack of progress that has been made. The deep state, all these guys that I've mentioned, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, Department of Homeland Security, they missed the boat. They didn't deliver a progress report even. They didn't even deliver a progress report on time, on March 26th. Their progress report was late. They didn't deliver a progress report until June. And then all these departments and agencies, the collective talents and energies of the U.S. government, only wrote a progress report that was 12 pages long. It took them 16 months to write a 12-page progress report. And the gist of that progress report is, well, we need to do more studies before we can protect America from an EMP. We need to do more studies. And that is absolutely not true. We don't need more studies. We know how to protect America. The EMP Commission, which I served, explained how. And this is one of the biggest problems with the deep state. It's one of the problems that President Trump, even though he has delivered on most of his promises, one of his most important promises he hasn't delivered on, and that is draining the swamp. These incompetent people that run the U.S. government, that are disloyal to the president and disloyal to the American people, yes, are threatening to get us all killed because they're not willing to do their jobs. They're hoping that this president will be defeated and he won't be there to fire them if he's reelected.